All right, everyone. Thank you for joining the Togo.io 2024 webinar series. Today we're going to be talking about decoding IoT device data using connectors. As a CSM here at Togo.io, I get a lot of questions around this, so this is going to be a good webinar, very informative for you to learn a little more. Before we get started, you'll notice in the chat, I put a sticky note there with my email address. Please feel free to email me if you have any questions or want a demo of the application or of the platform itself. I'd be glad to do that. But with that, let's get started. So again, as I mentioned, I'm David Hall, the Customer Success Manager here at Togo.io. I also have Freddie, who is a software developer, which we'll be showing you and going through the decoders and that process and everything that that's associated with that. If we talked about the agenda, today we're going to talk about device data input flow. All these topics, all these 5 topics are very important. Secondly, we'll be talking about the connectors themselves, the open connector repository, open source, and public and private flow overview. During the webinar, if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in chat and we'll address them as we move along here today through the webinar. I highly encourage to ask questions while you have the developer's attention here on this call. But again, you can email me or anything that you like to get your questions answered. So with that, I will pass it to Freddie. Freddie, the floor is yours.
All righty. Thank you, David. Hello, everyone. So when we're talking about connectors, we first need to understand how device data arrives at Togo.io. So this is what this slide is showing. To the left, we have the IoT device. It's going to first send data over to a network. That can be MQTT, LoRaWAN, or a simple HTTPS call. This network payload parser is then going to take that network data and transform it into the data format that Togo.io expects, which uses variable values, time, and create the variables that that network has. So it could have, for example, variables like the router RSSI or its IP. So it'll create a variable that is also called the payload. The payload variable then goes to the connector payload parser. This is where the device data is going to be transformed into data like temperature and humidity. You then have the device payload parser. This is an additional payload parser that allows you to remove existing variables from the payload before adding it to the bucket. So you could remove all of the data that was created at the network payload parser, for example. And then finally, it arrives at the bucket where it is going to be stored in the devices bucket at Togo.io. So connectors, here is an example of all of the connectors that it's where we can show all of the connectors at Togo.io. When you're going to create a device at Togo.io, it shows this list of devices. So just to iterate once more, here we have an example of the network creating the variable called payload hex. This payload hex variable is then sent to the connector, and the connector creates the variables temperature and humidity. So inside of Togo, we can have 2 types of connectors. We can have public connectors and private connectors. Public connectors are the ones that you see here, which are public to all users. These connectors are published via the open source GitHub repository. So what that means is that any user can see all of the code that are inside of these connectors, while private connectors can only be seen by who creates them or manually shared to specific profiles. And this can be done directly within Togo.io, while the public connectors have to be shown through the GitHub repository. So what is the GitHub repository? It is a repository that contains all of the connectors, as I've stated. It has all of the instructions in order to help users add new connectors. It also has a video explaining how to use it in a lot of detail. And it is open source, as I've already stated as well. All of these connectors that are shown in the GitHub repository are reviewed by Tago employees for maximum quality. The link for the decoders, let me add it here in the chat. 1 second. Here. So I want to make it clear that this is open source, so anyone can inspect, modify, or enhance existing decoders. This sometimes is an issue because some manufacturers do not want the payload parser to be public for all users. So that's the only con that we have. So now let me show you an example of creating the private and a public connector. Let me just open my screen here. Right. So now let me go to my admin. So here we can create an example connector. This is the example of a private connector. So we can go here to add connector, and I'm going to call mine example sensor 1 that's what I'm going to give it. And it's going to use what networks? I'm going to give it all of the LoRaWAN networks, which are a lot. Create my network here. So here we have the description and the device image. This is going to be located, this is going to appear here. Let me find it. So here will be the name of the device, which is here. The description will be here, the small subtitle, and the image will be here. Other than that, all of the LoRaWAN images will be here, like in this example. Going to documentation, we then have the description that's going to appear when the person decides to add the device. So if I were to click here, this is the information that comes from here. And we also have more information like completion text, which shows after once you create the device. Once you create the device, it will then appear here, the information of the completion text. And oh, right, this one stays here. Here, no, here, sorry, here, right. Other than that, we can add the payload parser here, which is the most important part. And here is where you can share this private connector with other profiles. So you would get their profile ID and share it here. Right. And now the option of publicly creating a decoder that all users will be able to see through this page here. So the first thing you need to do is come here and download the repository. You can clone it onto your computer, and then you'll have this repository inside of your computer. So let me open the code here. So here we can imagine that I just copied the repository and it's now on my computer. Here you can go and create either a connector payload parser or a network payload parser. the networks are here, and the connectors are here. I'm going to show an example of a connector. So the way we do it is that we have all of the brands and manufacturers here. So I created an example brand here. The first thing you would do is check if the connector that you want to add isn't already, their manufacturer isn't already here. If it isn't, you create a folder of the manufacturer, and then you create a folder for the sensor. Once you have the folder of the manufacturer and the sensor, you can then create the folder assets. Oops. You can create the folder of assets and add the logo, which is the image that you're going to use for the connector. Also the connector.jsonc, which it's easier to just copy from an existing one. This just shows the deployment process where all of the information is in order to then send it to here to deploy it. All right. So note that you can have multiple versions here. So here's version 1 or version 2. So then you would have where it's located at here. So you would then create another folder here, which is version 2.0.0, for example. So, okay. Here you'll have the description.md. So this is the description that's going to show up here in the subtitle. Then you have inside of each version, you'll have the payload, which is the connector, preferably in TypeScript, and also the unit tests. So you either need to add either the unit tests or the device manual so that we can verify if the payload parser is correct. And then finally, we have the payload config JSON. So this is where you'll add where the description file is, so its path. This is correlating to this. You have the install text, which is here. You also have the end text, which is the completion text from here, from earlier, the device annotation and the device parameters, and also the networks that are that use this connector uses. So these are all the paths that go to the network files here. So network, then you have all of the LoRaWANs, MQTT, everything all of the networks that we have at Tago. After having done that, you can then and check if your unit test or your device manual, check if you created it correctly. Then you can come here and create a pull request, like in this example here. Then having done that, a Tago employee will verify if everything is as planned. And if everything is, we will approve it and subsequently deploy it. Otherwise, we will ask for modifications if necessary. And I believe that is all.
Thank you, Freddie. Appreciate that. Let me start this real quick. Now, I do want to take a little bit of time and show you guys some quick self-help things on our website. I highly recommend that you follow us on LinkedIn or social media, because not only do we announce features that we're doing, events that we're attending, but also webinars that are coming up. That was a fairly quick webinar, and we knew that was going to be the case for connectors. But as I said, if some of you missed it, in the chat, I have a sticky note with my email address. And you can email me with any questions, or maybe you want a demo of the platform itself. I'd be glad to do that. But I'd like to share my screen and just go over a couple self-help things. As the customer success manager here, I find that there's a lot of people that I talk to that have been customers for quite a while that they just don't realize some of the new things that we have. Some of these are new, some of them are not, but it's just very informative to really help you to get started with your applications. So first thing, I'm just on our main website here. By the way, you can create a free account here. Our accounts are not trial-based at this time. So you can have a free account for as long as you like. You have some limited service and availability, like 5 dashboards and 5 devices, but it really gets you going on Togo as well. And you can also request a demo from here. So the best place for me to go when I'm showing people the site and everything is really the resources, because you have a lot of self-help and quick links here. I'm going to show you a couple of those today. The Learning Center, very powerful. People take this all the time, and really what it is, it's really get to know Togo. Again, as a customer success manager, what I find, what people like about Togo is it's very customizable. They don't need to come to us for professional services. Of course, many customers do have us build out their applications, and they white label it and so on based off of their business requirements. But you can build everything yourself and never have to, you can build it yourself based off of your requirements, your project requirements or your business requirements, or both. But the 100 modules, I don't like to call them basics because there's not really basics. It's more fundamentals is the word I like to use. So the 100 modules are more fundamentals, and these are in chronological order. Of course, you don't have to take them in chronological order. You could just jump to one that that you're interested in. But like, you can't have dashboards without devices, and so on and so forth. And then the 200 modules, you need to know a little bit of JavaScript, but I don't know much, and I was able to get through this. But it's very informative to really get to know how to learn Togo. And these are free as well. So that's a great resource there. If I go back to resources, this one is extremely popular. So these templates that we have here, you can download for free. And once you download the templates, you own them. You can change colors. You can add different devices. You could add a new widget. You can remove a widget. You own it. It's in your profile at that point. So 100% yours. And these are a great way to get inspired and jump started on Togo.io. Again, extremely popular. We're adding to these quite often for different templates that we have. But as you can see, we have energy, weather, GPS. There's a lot of different templates here. So I highly recommend that you start using these templates. This way you don't have to start from scratch. It's really a jump off point for you. So again, lots of templates there. That's a great resource as well. And then if I also look here, obviously you can find a partner here. We have our help center. It's great if you're looking at network integration, which is simple with Togo. That's a very popular topic that people email me about. You can sign up for our system status, which I highly recommend. Then we have Kickstarter. You do need a starter account for this, which is $49 a month. But basically what Kickstarter is it's really a step up from the templates. It's a foundation for you where you could start building out many different applications or associating your dashboards. Let's say you have one for energy and one for healthcare. You can have both of those dashboards in your portal, right? In your end user portal, Togo Run. By the way, for people not familiar with Togo, when I speak of Togo Run, I'm talking about your end user experience, how you create it. What are they going to see when they log in and things like that, your sign up page. But Kickstarter is a great way to get started as well. It's a step up from the templates, as I said. And then as well, we have some new ebooks out, which are really good. I'll just go there real quick. Warehouse logistics. We'll have a few more coming out in the coming weeks. So keep your eye open for that. These are extremely popular as well. And then we have our use cases, right? These use cases, we are building on these quite often, but there's some really good ones here. Talk about how Togo helped them solve a problem and the benefits of Togo. So these are very, very beneficial. Now, if we just go back to the topic of devices and connectors, right? That we were talking about during this webinar. If you were to just type in Togo.io/devices without let's say you don't have a free account and you're curious, right? Like what is available? We have over 500. I think we're approaching 600 if we're not there already of available devices. But as Freddie just went through, if a device is not available here, if I just search, let's just pick one, Dragino, right? We have all these Dragino sensors, Tectelic, all kinds of sensors from all kinds of different manufacturers. Again, as a reminder, we don't sell sensors and we don't sell connectivity. We integrate with just about everybody from that aspect. But if you were to come on here and your sensor, you didn't find your sensor, as Freddie said, you could just go and create your own connector, whether that's private or public. There is more documentation on that, and we'll be sending out this a link to this this webinar so you can reference back to it. But we also have some great documentation on it as well. One of the last things I would like to talk about, again, Tago is very big on self-help, right? We want you guys to be comfortable and inspired to build whatever your business needs are, whatever it is you want to build. We want you to be able to build it as easy as possible. That's why we have the Learning Center, the templates, you know, really good help center, A+ support team. And we even go a step further where we have videos. Yes, there's some webinar videos, but you can also go to how-to videos, right? How to publish, there you go, how to publish connectors right there, right? Getting dashboard templates, which we spoke about briefly. There's a lot of really good information here, and these aren't real long, drawn-out videos. They're to the point, and they give you the information that you need as quickly as possible. So these are a really good resource as well. As a reminder, again, you could sign up for a free account. You could take a tour, request a demo, or whatever you may need. Let me check one thing. Okay, so I think that is all really I wanted to go through on this. Oh, we have our developer center too. This is also very popular. And I should say the community, great place to interact with our developers as well. We have several developers that interact with the community directly, as well as support is there, and I'm there as well. And then you could always track our events as I spoke about at the top of the call. So it's really important that you follow us on LinkedIn and social media so you can get all this information. We have some really cool stuff coming out this year. I'm not going to spoil the surprise right now, but we have some really nice stuff coming out this year. So track us, follow us on LinkedIn. I think you'll be very pleased with what you can find with Tago as well from that aspect. Again, if you want to learn more, I already told you how to create your account, the Learning Center, but my email address is up at the top. You can email me at any time. I'd love to talk to you about anything that you may need. But other than that, I think that's it for today, guys. As I said, I knew this was going to be a short webinar, but it was very informational. And again, we'll be sending out the link for the video for you all to reference back. But I hope to speak to each and every one of you soon. And other than that, wherever you're at in the world, have a great day or night. Thank you.